Everybody, thank you for coming. We appreciate it, and welcome to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education regular meeting for August 25th, 2015. Could we please have a roll call?
Mark Berry.
Present.
Leanne Charlotte present. Julie Gottschall present. Richard Hay.
Present.
Lopez.
Present.
Jen Martin.
Present.
Susan Ryder.
Present.
We have a quorum and we can begin. So if you join me and rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we open the floor to public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, please feel free to do so. We will also offer an opportunity at the end of the meeting for anybody to address then if something comes up that they think of at that point. If nobody would like to address the board now, we also offer the opportunity for board members to add an additional agenda item, discussion item for future agendas, or a question or a discussion item for this evening that will not be voted on. I can lead it off with one of the things that's come up in my conversations with Dr. Sophie is when we have the middle school renovated, it would be nice to maybe bring our board meetings home and have them in the new building. And if we do so I guess it's a two-part question. Does that make sense to do that? And if we do that, what about live television? Right now, we're broadcasting live. To do that at the middle school, that would be a little more challenging. Easy to record and put the video up the next day, but live broadcast would be more challenging. So not for really a discussion tonight, but for an agenda item for sometime in the next month or so to talk about, because we need to start planning ahead.
One thing that we could say right now is if there are people who watch this live and it makes any difference to them to have it this way, let us know.
That's true.
Both of you.
For that. I was going to say all three of you.
Anybody wants to add an agenda item? This is that opportunity now, or if you think of something in the future. Barring no other ideas, we'll move on to our agenda presentation section of the agenda. We'll lead off with item 6A and Ms. Kelly Bay, who will update the board on curriculum work that was done over the summer.
Hello everyone, good evening, welcome back. I have a short and sweet presentation tonight, but I think it's important to acknowledge and make you aware of the important work that was done this summer. So we had, I knew this was going to happen. It is, oh, there we go, thanks. We had teachers in-house working over 970 hours this summer across district in the elementary and the middle school. So we have a wide range of projects that teachers were engaged in this summer. As you skim through that list, you should notice that there's quite a bit of focus in English language arts, so reading, literacy, a lot of writing work, and science work this summer. So the couple of images I just wanted to mention. On the top, we've got our Lake Bluff Middle School Science Department is going through a training with iQuest, the new science program that we adopted thanks to your approval at the end of last year. I also want to mention we had a couple Lake Forest teachers join us in that. So they have made the decision at 6th grade to adopt one unit of iQuest this year, and was really pleased that they were able to join us. We can invite them in for the training, and we were able to learn together and really start the year with a partnership, and we can launch forward and continue learning about implementation of iQuest with Lake Forest and Deer Path Middle School. At the bottom, we had our kindergarten through 8th grade teachers. First, they worked in teams of 2 at their grade level, and then at the end of the summer, we're able to come back together and articulate and look at the curriculum vertically. So that means we're looking from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, so that those team members had an understanding of how the skills are progressing, what units we're working on. They had some time to really compliment one another on the work that was done, ask questions, and celebrate. So I want to mention also that the 970 hours was all in-house. It doesn't include the extra work and hours that teachers spend planning and working sort of at home or together in other places throughout the summer. and courses that they take to develop professionally. So that is worth mentioning. So the work is really centered around a variety of goals. It's not really just lesson planning and getting ready for specific units, although that is part of it. It's a really great time for us to step back, look at the big picture, and then zoom in on work that's going to help to support student achievement throughout the year. So kind of a list of purposes, but also things that we can celebrate about the work that was done. This, I think, is one of my favorite slides, the feedback from teachers, in which they are really just expressing gratitude to the board for allowing this work to happen, to the district for creating the space and the time and the resources. So energized, I think, is the word that would describe teachers entering the school year. They felt good about what they were able to accomplish. A lot of times we joke about teachers over the summer. We kind of slip into what's called summer brain. So we're not all the way there, and rightfully so. We've worked really hard over the school year, but there was no sign of summer brain during this work. Everyone was really engaged and motivated, and continued even beyond some of the time within the walls of the district. So checking things off the list, feeling accomplished are some of the things that were expressed that I was able to hear throughout the work this summer. And then just moving into next steps. So even though things may be checked off the list, we still need to come back around, continue our development, put things into practice, reflect on them, and build and grow. So our elementary teachers and our middle school teachers are constantly working to align and implement and follow with the changes that are presented to them. So we had a nice launch this summer to get some things started, and we'll continue to develop throughout the year. That was brief, short and sweet, but thank you for letting our teachers have that time, and I look forward to filling you in on their implementation of the work that was done this summer. If anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to address.
Thank you.
Thanks to you and Kevin for getting that all coordinated, because I know how much work that was for both you guys.
The next item is item 6B, staffing enrollment, and in this case, Dr. Rubenstein will provide a quick update on enrollment figures on the first day of school.
You have in your board packets this evening just a quick update on our staffing and enrollment, and I wanted to walk you through that a little bit. As you know, or as you may know or remember, last year we started the school year with 865 students on the sixth day of school. Tomorrow on the sixth day of school we will actually have 881. There was one small change, another student added in the pre-K3 class. And so we're increasing our enrollment by about 1.5% over last year, which is really a nice thing that we'd like to see, and continues from last year. So a couple things that I want to point out, that a couple of classes actually grew more than we expected, and there were some changes that took place. And so I wanted to walk you through those. So in our current third grade class, they left second grade with a total of, it was actually at the end of the school year, it was down to 64 students. Those are the six-day enrollment numbers last year, so 67. And we had several move-ins over the summer. And so when we met with you during the special board meeting at the end of July, we asked that we be able to move a section of a teacher from fifth grade that had been scheduled to teach in fifth grade to the third grade section. What was happening at that time was that fifth grade had 3 sections. The enrollment in each of those sections was, I believe, 16, 18, and 18. And so we closed the section of 16 and moved that teacher to third grade. When we did that, it necessitated us, and by us I really mean Margaret Sinclair, going out to parents of students in traditional fifth grade and asking them if they would like to be a part of the multi-age classroom 4 or 5 so that we could even out our enrollment numbers. In the end, what ended up happening is that we were able to even out our numbers in multi-age, and so you have those class sizes in the enrollment packet, and we actually ended up getting a few more fifth graders. So our fifth graders are sort of our class high there of 23 students in each of those sections. But we're really pleased with where we're at in terms of our enrollment numbers, and each of the classes continues to grow. Our kindergarten class was a little bit larger than expected, and that's always nice to see because that will grow over time.
And what about the 0.5 teacher from?
Sorry about that. Also when we met at the end of July for the special board meeting, we had asked approval for an additional 0.5 FTE. In anticipation of the fact that our kindergarten enrollment was going to go up to, it was going to be above 96 students. And what that would have done is that it would have put a section at 20 in kindergarten, which is not something that we like to see, and it's outside of our enrollment targets. And so what we did after that was approved is that we went back, called each of the individual families who had already intended to enroll but had not yet finished the registration process, made sure that they were getting ready to enroll and do all that other stuff, and that helped to shake out some of the numbers there. And so we actually didn't end up needing to hire that additional 0.5 FTE. So though it was approved, we did not use it.
Any questions? Thank you. I like having the consistent forms. Oh, we have one here.
I was talking to Susan, who mentioned that her son's class was how many?
It was right around 80 when he went into kindergarten, and now he's a 7th grader, and we're up to 104.
Correct.
Are you seeing a lot of that as kids get older, we tend to pull in more kids into the middle school?
Absolutely. We see a big increase in our enrollment numbers, not typically in the 6th to 7th grade, but certainly in the 5th to 6th grade, so as they're coming into middle school, and then also in the 7th to 8th grade, so a year before they go to high school. We have typically seen an increase there, and that is going back over time. As we look at these numbers Nate always likes to say, yeah, that's 70 in 3rd grade right now. That won't be 70 when they get to the middle school. I don't know that it'll be 100, but it will certainly be bigger than it is right now.
I was surprised by how much it had grown.
Right. And because that class, I don't know if you remember, that class left elementary school with 87 students in it. So that is a rather large increase over the last couple of years.
Okay. Anybody else?
Thank you.
We'll move on to item 6C regarding summer school, and Ms. Carly Quick is going to give us a presentation on summer school.
All right. Hi, everybody. So I am during the regular school year, I'm the social worker at the middle school, but during the summer I have the privilege of being our summer school principal and getting to do a lot with our students and staff over the summer, and let Kelly share a lot of the work that the teachers did. I wanted to quickly share with you guys some of the exciting things that our students got to do. So, okay. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we have 5 different programs that operate during the summer. I'll quickly run through them with you. The first is our Kaleidoscope program, and those are where you see those kind of fun, educational, exploratory classes that students can choose based on their own interest. We have our extended school year program, which offers reading, writing, and math support for our special education students. We have a Reading Academy, which offers support to any student who might want a little bit of a reading booster to kind of boost themselves up for the fall. And then we have a Math Academy, which is open to any student who just wants kind of a fun and educational math experience. And athletically, so we have a bunch of academic stuff, also some athletic camps that are run through the middle school, which we'll tell you a little bit more about. So in terms of summer school logistics, we're a 4-week program, and we switched this year to Monday through Thursday, which was a huge success. I think that will continue in the future. Having Fridays off was awesome. We have a $3.99 tuition, which has been steady for the last couple of years and has worked out pretty well. 151 students and 26 staff members, so we're working with a lot of people, which is great. 22 classes, 16 of which are those exploratory, interest-based classes, and then 6 are the supportive classes in the reading, writing, and math. We, for the second year, have provided transportation, which, as you can see, 118 students, very well utilized and very appreciated. Our parents have told us that we provide that. They're really loving that. And then the Park District partnership, which we've also had over the last several years, where our students, after they get out with us, then they walk over to the Park District and participate in some camps over there for the rest of the day. In terms of finances, I've shared here the salaries, transportation costs, supplies, waived fees, and then the revenues. So as you can see, we're not quite at a break-even point, and we've discussed this. We've been talking about this over the last couple of years and are working on different ways to kind of close that gap. But at the end of the day, felt really positive about just the overall opportunities that we provide for our students over the summer in terms of academic, social, emotional, just a lot of benefits there. So we felt pretty good about that. In terms of the athletic camp logistics, same things Monday through Thursday, $150 per camp. Had a pretty good enrollment this summer with students and some staff members. We're offering volleyball, field hockey, and basketball. So these are opportunities for students to take sports that they might be interested in, kind of hone those skills in for doing seasons throughout the regular school year. And, some finances there that you can see: coaching salaries, supplies, discounted and waived fees, and also the revenues there. So Dan Williams has been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years to boost that programming, increase the revenues. They're doing a lot of fun stuff over there, and we've been really excited to have him working on that. In terms of the Math Academy, I just wanted to share with you guys, as I'm sure you might know, it's actually not a district-sponsored program. It's sponsored with Janice Heigl through Educational Solutions Northwest, so who does a lot of our math consulting during the school year. And so they handle all the financials, all the logistics and whatnot, but it runs alongside of our programming. So same locations for the elementary school, the middle school, and the high school, same dates and times and all of that. But because it's not a district-sponsored program, you can have students from other communities come in. So that was kind of a neat thing this year for some of our students and teachers to hang out with kids in surrounding communities. So that was kind of a quick overview. I'm just really excited that we're one of the few districts, as you know, that offers such great things over the summer for our students and staff to participate in, and we're really proud of it and really excited about that. So I'm fortunate to do it and glad for the support. And if there are any questions or concerns that you guys have, you want to chat about?
Just wondered, is participation growing, about the same? Where are we?
Since I've been doing this for, it's my third summer doing it, and it was kind of, and prior to that I'd worked with the person who was doing it, who said it was kind of going down. Enrollment was going down. I think 10 years ago it was probably twice that amount. It was much higher. Now we're kind of back on an upswing. We've been steadily going upwards, so we're going to just keep doing that PR and keep offering great things and working on moving in a higher direction. I feel like.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Carly.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for leading a great summer school.
All right, we're going to move on to the report section of the agenda. Item 7A, the elementary school report, and Principal Margaret Sinclair will give us her report.
Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome back. It does not feel like summer anymore, but I think next week it will, they say. We've had a great start to the school year. It feels really good on my end to have 1 year under my belt, so it felt really comfortable and welcoming back familiar faces and a few new teachers. Probably the best part of that first day of school is seeing the 5th graders walk out with the kindergartners, holding hands and walking them to their buses, and it kind of just symbolizes what's great about Lake Bluff Elementary School. So again, we've had a great start. Kevin told us a little bit about our enrollment. Probably one of the exciting things that's happening is our PTO is really leading effort in the lunchroom to both recycle and do some composting. And even just in the first day of lunch, our head of maintenance said our trash had been reduced by 50%. He was taking pictures. So they're really training the students from the very beginning and where to dispose their items and the composting, so the composting and the recycling. So we're excited about that. We think that that's going to really boost that awareness. And so their little tagline is "The red fox has turned green." So we're excited about that. Any questions from all of you?
Do we do we do our own composting, or do we send it to a service?
A service picks it up twice a month for really a great rate, and it's modeled after a program in Hubbard Woods. And our PTO went and visited them this past spring and brought it to us. We met with them, both with our head of maintenance and myself, and really the service fee is a great value because we're not doing it ourselves right on the property. Yeah.
How's the new lunch program working out? I mean,
that will be starting in 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
That starts September 14th. There's a lot of excitement about it. I think families are very excited about it. So sign up should be happening here right now and all the way through September 7th. Then every 2 weeks they have an opportunity to sign up again for hot lunches. Students, of course, don't have to participate in the program, but it's going to be really nice to have that as an option for families.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, now we go to the middle school report and Principal Blackmer.
Good evening. As you've already heard, there was a lot of wonderful work being done over the summer and very productive meetings, but I can speak for the entire middle school staff when I say that we're really excited to greet the students back to school. I've definitely been out front as they've dismissed and arrived each day, and some of the comments that I've heard, in particular from the sixth graders, were just overwhelmingly positive. We love the middle school. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Thanks, Mr. Blackmer. It was awfully nice, and so certainly left me feeling very good. One of the things that I would count as a big victory for us, and has been a big push this year, is for those students who are bringing or riding bikes to school or skateboards. Even had a rollerblader today. 100% of them wearing helmets. We reached that point as of yesterday. Also had a number of helmets donated, brand new helmets that were donated, so that any student that does not have a helmet and needs one, they can feel free to come and see me and we can take care of that as well. But just another way to help keep our students safe on the way to and from school. But all in all, we're off to a great start. Sports seasons have begun this week. Soccer's begun, volleyball is underway, field hockey is underway. And it was nice to see those students hard at work today after school and practice. So, as I said, great to have them back. It was a quiet summer in the middle school. I expect that might not be the case next summer. We're looking forward to that.
I could guarantee that. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Blackmer? No? Okay, moving on. Item 7C, the Director of Finance CSBO report, and Mr. Jay Kahn will provide an update on both the bond issuance and the status of our audit.
Okay, first of all, I'll talk about the bond sale. We just completed the sale of the bonds and it went very well. The rates fluctuate daily, and the day we decided to sell bonds, China had announced that they were devaluing their currency, and there was a shortage in the bond market of municipal securities, which are safer. So it turns out we were oversubscribed for 2 of our maturities. It was a $5.375 million face value for the bond sale. And we had we sold it at a premium of $375,000. So we got $5.75 million on our bond sale, and that was at the high end of the range. I think when we did the resolution, we padded it just in case things were favorable, and it turned out that we needed it. So that went well. And then also our audit is currently underway, and that's also going well. John Marison met with our auditors, did an opening conference, and they're currently working through the first year audit, which tends to take a little bit longer. We also have some delays from IMRF and TRS in getting the pension calculations just calculated for the audit. So they probably won't be done until November. We hope to have some maybe preliminary numbers from them in October, but the final audit will be done in November. We do have the preliminary, kind of unaudited actuals, and I'll be talking about those later in the presentation.
Do you want to talk a little bit about your discussion with them?
It was not very exciting.
The audit wasn't exciting.
No, we discussed the approach and the status, and it was just a typical getting to meet you sort of thing. Spent about an hour with them. It was good. Gave me a good deal of confidence in what they're accomplishing. That's a slightly new approach from what has been taken in the past. New auditors always tend to look at things a little differently and maybe a little more intensely, and I thought that was good. I did have one question. Do you know what the average rate was on the bond issuance? Just roughly?
It was a little lower than we.
It was, I think the true interest cost was 3.4%.
Average. Okay.
I just remember that we benefited. We made up pretty well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jake.
Sorry.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Should we just clarify again what we do in the case of having raised more cash than we thought we might?
Sorry?
You know, when you're reporting back that we've raised a little more cash than we expected or might have, we had conversation that is money that could be applied towards reducing debt or managing debt payments. I just wanted to say that again so that if people are paying attention to that, they're not concerned that we don't have our eye on that ball.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Well, we also have still left open to a certain extent how much we're going to use out of the fund balance. So it's a combination of that plus the borrowings, and my understanding from what remains, we have a number of different choices we can take at that point, all positive choices.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess the message there is that we had a fixed amount of room that we wanted to borrow in, and the reason that we were able to borrow more is because our interest costs are lower. So we have this money, but we also got it at a better interest rate. And then, and as John said, we have flexibility now as to what to do with it.
Good position.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Jay? And my understanding is in item 7D, the Director of Student Services, Technology and Assessment will not have a report tonight.
This will be next meeting.
And item 7E, the President's report. I regret to inform you that I will have a very minimal report, other than to welcome everybody back. And this is going to be a huge year with this middle school project going on. We have a lot to look forward to and a lot to accomplish. So I just think we've got a great year ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to it. And I want to say welcome back. Then we go to 7F, the Superintendent's report.
Again, very short. We had 2 exciting Teacher Institute days. Our Meet the Teacher as well as our Locker Day was on the same day. Our Locker Day really was full of life. The building was much more busy than I'm used to on Locker Day here. It was kind of exciting. Also, before school started, I did want to mention that we had a temporary fix put in at our middle school step. We had quite a few people fall on our middle school step, and as you know, it's going to be completely renovated, but we needed a fix for this year. So we had the work done on the step the weekend prior to school starting, and then we had some vandalism done on that Sunday by some Lake Bluff students, former students from back, and they are working with our school district, and their families will be paying for the damage that is done. So as parents come in on any events that are going on, for instance, on Thursday of this week, they may still see it doesn't look the way that it's going to look to be finished for the rest of the year, but that's because we had to do a temporary fix on the temporary fix for the step.
Is Craig aware of this? I'm looking at his eyes and he's like...
No, he doesn't. I didn't. It's all taken care of, so...
He's got a look at his face.
It's a really great looking picture of it.
It turned out really nice. Our cameras really captured the students doing it, so and we're working with them so that it becomes a learning experience, and the families are paying the cost. So then we had the beginning of school on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of last week. Always very exciting to see our kids so happy to be back. Our staff excited. The routines were already started the first day. I have 2 kindergarten teachers. I'm actually observing both the job share teachers this year. So I'm informally adopting the classroom. And it was nice to get back to the same questions I'm used to. Oh, you're a doctor, do you give us shots? I usually get that, and I had quite a bit of that. Lots of compliments on what I was wearing and did I like school. I missed that because that enthusiasm that kindergartners bring to school, I'd like to bottle up and keep because they're just absolutely beautiful at that age. But all the rest of our kids are polite, nice, working hard. I was able on Thursday to observe the middle school advisories all getting their materials. I mentioned in our board update, one of our focus areas is on executive functioning. So you're going to find that even the folders are kind of color coordinated this year to help our students. And they were all to work and on target. So we've had a great beginning to the school year, and I've walked around knocking on wood for 3 days. We're now into the school year, and it's not even the beginning of the school year anymore. So we've had a great year, and it's thanks to our great administrative team as well as our really hardworking staff. All of them, from preparing the buildings to doing all the summer work for teaching, to our teaching assistants that are really supporting us in so many ways. Everyone is just really working hard. So, great year.
That's it?
Yep.
And item 7G, Land Use Committee, if Julie Gotch would like to update us. If there's anything to update, if not, we'll keep on moving
I
on.
will update you briefly to say that as the school year begins, the Land Use Committee ends. This committee was convened in February of 2014. It was a Park District initiative with the purpose of identifying open lands and public lands in the village and ensuring that those lands were being put to their highest and best use. I participated as a representative of the school district being a stakeholder, of course, in Park District and public lands. There was a very comprehensive report that was developed. I believe that should be made publicly available soon. I don't know that it's out there yet. Some interesting takeaways and aspirations for the village in terms of bike paths and walking paths and use of open lands. So for those of you who are interested, you may want to take a look at that. But the impression that I came away with, which I want to just articulate here, is that there's such a good, close working relationship between the Park District and the school district. I commend Dr. Sophie and Ron Salsky for having such a good open line of communication and ensuring that these two entities work so well and so closely together for the benefit of our students. So thank you.
And for the benefit of our taxpayers, I think, because then everybody benefits.
Right.
So, great. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item into the discussion section of our agenda, item 8A, Board Planning Calendar. Dr. Sophie's going to provide an update on some future agenda items.
I just want to make a couple comments. Tonight we're going to be voting on our tentative budget. So in September we know we vote on our budget that's actually filed. We reviewed our staffing and enrollment. We've had our beginning of school. We will be having our budget discussion again this month, follow up from our June discussions on the budget. When we start talking about our levy, we will once again come back to our projections, which we worked on all of last spring in order to work on the bonding. There are many things, though, in September and October that have changed due to the fact that we don't have AYP reports in the state of Illinois anymore. So one of the things that I'd like to propose is after the state decides what they're going to do with park and accountability, that we go in and change our board report and our board calendar to reflect all the changes. So Terry and I stay on top of this. We've planned for each meeting. We always run it by Mark. But note that there will, based upon when we get results for different things, what we're actually assessing when we get those reports, all of the assessment items will be changing on this report. But we're right on target. That's everything.
Great. Any questions on the calendar? Okay. Moving on to item 8B, LBMS renovation update. Craig Sipka from White Architects and Nate Blackburn, the principal, are going to give us a brief update with the understanding that there will be a much more comprehensive update and more specifics at our next meeting.
Craig, if you could do me a favor with that, we are going to have you point the design to the board so they can see it. And the reason for that, for the audience members that are watching, is we're at a point now where our designs are intricate enough that for security reasons we don't want to publish them or put them on our website because they're really being finished. at any point, anybody in Lake Bluff can either email me or give me a call, or Jay Kahn or Nate Blackmer, and we will sit down and go through designs.
Herb, we gotta put it up.
You're right in the middle.
Maybe if we just put it over to this side.
They're not losing anything by not seeing you.
Well, but then
Okay,
some
there.
people can't see it.
Okay, so again though, that is the reason why we're not showing the design. We're at a security point right now. And again, Nate and Craig, just briefly on the summer, because we'll have big presentations in September and October. Not at all. So,
Just briefly, we had been working with staff at this point. It's very important to start getting staff input. We've met specifically with the special ed teachers, also our science teachers, spent some time kind of processing their feedback and bringing back some different ideas. And then there's more work to do along those lines. Now that we're in session, it'll be a lot easier to get the teachers in and give them a chance to take a look. So that's what we've been up to, and I know Craig's got a lot more to add to that.
Dr. Sophie, ladies and gentlemen of the board, and distinguished guests, thanks for having me back. It's good to be back. Been a busy summer. A lot of meetings, a lot of investigations, a lot of design work. We've been meeting regularly with Dr. Sophie and her advisory committee. Probably about every 3 weeks during the course of the summer. We have another meeting scheduled for, I think it's September 10th coming up. I want to take a little break as everybody was getting ramped up for the school year. In between that, we've been out at the schools measuring, drawing, investigating, doing some more observations to make our designs a little bit more realistic and detailed and whole. We've had the opportunity of taking a tour with the science department. With the advisory group, and then coming back to meet with the science department to talk a little bit about some of the things that we heard and saw over at
it was Deerfield 109. What was it? Shepherd Middle School?
Shepherd Middle School, that's it. And that was kind of the impetus for the conversations and really the layout of the science labs as they are developing. We've gotten a lot more detail in the plans since we've been in front of you. That's really reflective of the kind of dialogue that we've had with a number of the departments that are affected by the renovation, the special ed department, the library folks, science department. We've met with the main of the administration, Nate and his close advisors. We still have some conversations to go yet with the performing and visual arts departments, so that we can kind of infill those spaces and make sure we get all the details right over there. And then we have a little bit of work left to do with the social studies department and the world languages to kind of work out sort of the classroom edition and how that's going to be configured for them. And then lastly, the district administration offices that are going to be located in the garden level. We are going to go ahead and we're showing a big block of space there yet, but we do have now a program that the design team is going back and making some offices and rearranging those spaces. So a lot of good things are happening. I think at this point the process is pretty typical. You know, we have still a lot of hurdles to cross, a lot of information to get, and we're having a lot of conversations in the 2 or 3 weeks that since we've met with the advisory group. We've certainly engaged our engineers to understand how structurally things are going to be standing. That's really important. And and also our mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineers who are getting involved in the conversation. Next up is our asbestos abatement engineers and managers that are going to be coming out to the school, looking through all your records and making sure that we have that scope kind of buttoned down so that as we start developing the plans again, getting into the deeper levels of design and going back to IHC with their recommendations for budgeting and construction scheduling, we get that part of the project right, because that's really important. Yes?
IHC is the construction manager that the construction construction management committee is going to be recommending for your approval tonight to approve that
Tim,
contract.
raise your hand out there. Tim
Just so we have, we first IHC, they are now part of it. They will be part of the team once we've looked at it tonight. Okay.
I think with some of the bigger changes from the last time we talked, I know a couple board members were more concerned about the entryway. We are keeping the same entryway area as we have now.
Yep.
So that, and one of the deciding factors was the entryway for the school then would be on one side and the entryway for the district office would be on another. So people don't confuse about those items. We've really focused a lot on the science rooms because that is, to me, it's one of the more exciting pieces, although the whole thing to me is very exciting. The trip to Deerfield, at some point when we talk more about the science labs, I would really like, Mark and Leanne were both on that trip along with Nate, and I really want to thank Jim Sullivan, who is the science chair at Lake Forest High School, also went on that trip with us. Very exciting. I'd like to get the teachers out there, so we're going to have to schedule that visit also. It will have a major impact on our teaching of science. We know that. And that's kind of exciting as we are moving into the Common Core. But as you see on here, and it's really hard to tell, the administrative offices are totally mapped out and designed now. The media center and the media area, which is really going to be spectacular, is mapped out. The downstairs area, the eating area, the STEM lab, conference rooms, even to a point where we're going to have a mother's room for nursing mothers because we have no place for that right now. It's in kind of it's in an all-purpose room right now. We've really spent a lot of time on the additional wing of classrooms, or what we would want to call learning spaces. We're learning a lot about learning spaces and flexibility on that.
One of the things that I wanted to mention was that there's been a lot of thought going into the configuration of the building, even those classrooms that aren't necessarily going to be renovated or new construction. And with input from the staff, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback on the idea of grouping classrooms by subject area. There were conversations at one time about grouping by grade level, but we really felt that part of what makes the middle school special is that those 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students do have the opportunity to interact throughout the day and cross paths, and generally that's a very good thing. Not only that, there are a number of classrooms, or teachers rather, that teach across grade level, so we didn't want to make students feel as though they were going into an 8th grade wing if they were in a 7th grader class and felt odd about that, or vice versa. And truly, the grade level teachers have common time, and they're able to meet together as a group, whereas subject area teachers don't necessarily have that, but by being in close proximity to one another, they have more opportunity for informal conversations and dialogue and visibility to see what's going on in each other's classrooms. So we're really trying to formulate a plan that allows for most of those subject areas to be in close proximity to one another, and that's generating some excitement as well.
Do either one of you've attended on the meetings, you want to add anything?
I can say that the level of excitement in those meetings has been tremendous. It's just been the creativity that's flowing, the energy that's flowing in those meetings. It just made it really enjoyable for me personally, and to see the progress on this, the design has been, been a lot of fun. It's been really interesting to see it come from some big ideas to something that is almost buildable. I mean, I'm sure you're a long way away, but it's pretty amazing. Very excited about it.
If I may, even though we're in the infant stages of design, what we see developing over here is really kind of it's going to be a transformative experience for your students and your teachers. When we started meetings with the staff, we challenged them to think not differently, but different. And this is an opportunity of kind of looking at not only their section of the school, but the whole school in its entirety. And the development of the floor plans is really starting to take on that conversation and the content of that conversation and the challenge that we kind of pose. That doesn't mean that we're all there yet. We have a long way to go. A lot of conversations, some of them are going to be tougher than others. What's typical that happens when you go through this process and you meet with as many people as we're meeting, there is this tendency for skull creep. We gotta, we want this, we want that, we have to, and it's our job as your architect and your advisor, and hopefully should IC kind of pass the bill tonight, their job as well with Dr. Bicker. Wow, gotta give you an upgrade there. That sounds good though, doesn't it? with Mr. Bickert to kind of make sure that we stay within the budget parameters and still adhere to, and I have to stress again, the 3 priorities that were outlined by the community as well as the board when we started this project, which is to get the kids, in no particular order, get the kids out of the basement as far as instructional space. Safety, security, and main entry was another real big priority, and renovation and reconfiguration of the LMC. So those are the 3 main priorities. Everything else kind of falls around it, and we're going to do our best to honor all the requests that we heard, and we'll see how that all develops as we move forward.
We're probably a couple months down the road from when we last saw you, and I'm always concerned about the schedules on this thing. Do you still see the schedule playing out the way you originally predicted? At this point, I know it's early, but just at this point.
I think we're in pretty good shape from a design standpoint. We're marching right along with the schedule. We had a brief opportunity to talk to Mr. Bickert and the folks at IHC, and we're still kind of wrestling around with the construction schedule from that standpoint, but I really don't see any reason why we can't keep with the original major milestone dates that we had talked about earlier on. So, but that's all going to kind of ferret itself out and be presented in detail to you shortly.
And which is kids in the building a year from now and construction complete in December, January. Okay, of 18 months from now or 15 months from now. Okay.
But there's some discussion about possibly moving it up earlier. There's discussion about keeping it the way that it is. And so now that IHC is on board, we'll all sit and hash that out. I've been told 6 to 8 weeks is what I told the staff at middle school when Nate and I met with them.
6 to 8 weeks.
That we would kind of know the timeline.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Any other questions, concerns?
It is really exciting.
I do want to add one other piece, and we'll talk more about it in September. Craig had said this is an infancy stage. I like to think of it as preschool age. But when we get into kindergarten, we have to bring this to the village for all their authorization. So just know that we've already started that process. We have the forms from the village. I've talked to Craig. I've talked to our law firm because they've also done it. And we also have one of our committee members that is on the architectural review board that can kind of give us some advice on what we need to be doing with all that. So.
If I may, from a scheduling standpoint, that's probably the one wild card. I have no idea. We have no idea what to expect as far as how long it's going to take. We usually don't go in front of community boards like this, not board of education, but
right.
Planning boards and that kind of thing. So it's
architectural review boards.
Different approach here.
Any other questions?
I just want to reiterate your, so the community knows the security concerns for posting, that we will be unable to post floor plans on our website or show them on camera from this point forward, correct? Mm-hmm. Because we just can't reveal that online for just anybody to see. However, we can make arrangements for interested individuals or groups of individuals in the community who are interested in seeing the detail to schedule an appointment, probably reach out to Dr. Sophie or her secretary at the district office, and they can arrange time for individuals in the community to come see where we are. We're not trying to hide anything, but this is a security issue that we just want to protect the kids.
The other piece is for board members, we'll have actual drawings so you can look at a little bit more detail. This was just basically serving as an update so you could see all the work we've done this summer.
It also made me think about when we do go before the village, I've seen them put stuff on their website, so we have to kind of work
We're going to have to work with them on that. So, thank you very much. Thanks for all your hard work over the summer.
Sure. Thanks.
Thank you.
That's exciting. Okay, thank you. Item 8B, that's complete, renovation update. Now we're moving to 8C, the 2015-2016 tentative budget. And Mr. J. Kahn will present that tentative budget and cover the next item, 8D, the fund balance review policy, all at the same time.
Dr. Swift mentioned earlier, I'm going to go through the tentative budget. We brought you kind of a draft budget last June for your review. And then in August, we do the tentative budget. This budget will be on display at the district office and also on our website for public inspection until the budget hearing, which will take place at prior to the next board meeting, September 26th. And then they'll be approved, and that's the final budget that gets submitted to the state. So we'll go through the tentative budget. This budget, the key difference between this budget and the one you saw previously is that I've included the bond issue and the construction. I'll go through the historical results and then our revenue assumptions and expense assumptions. This is the budget. The operating budget is exactly balanced. You can see this $97,000 surplus actually gets transferred to the debt service fund to pay our lease payments for our copiers. And then the balance of this this loss in the debt service is the issuance costs of our bonds that we have to expense this year. And then the capital projects is not an operating fund, and that is pretty much the construction project on the middle school. We plan to spend about 30% of the budget next fiscal year.
So that 3.065.
Right.
Yeah.
We got a estimated draw schedule from the architects and called for about 30% of the spending to be next fiscal year.
And that's all expensed in 1 year. You're not allowed to advertise that anyway?
No. Well, it does get amortized on our total fund statements, right. But on our governmental statements, it's expensed. So there'll be an adjustment for that in our audit. If you look at our historical results, the last time I brought this in June, I was comparing versus the prior year budget. Now we have unaudited actuals, so you can see our total numbers. Numbers are a bit small, but we had a slight surplus, $200,000 last fiscal year. So we started the year with a fund balance of $9.5 million, almost 9.6. Now we're at a roughly almost $9.8 million total fund balance. And then you can see our revenue and our expense reflects the spending on the middle school renovations. These numbers also reflect our bond issue, and then so this loss is really just purely the spending on the middle school. We should have a change in fund balance of $2.6 million, and that's pretty much the leftover money from the bond issue that we'll spend next year. Just to go back through the revenue assumptions, we're assuming we've got the 2014 tax levy. Just to refresh your memory, we're going to be increasing the taxes by 1.5%, which was the CPI, and then we get another 0.5% from new property. Just kind of a preview of next year's levy. The initial assessments came in July, and we're going to be getting about 30% of the target money next year because it was put into operation this fiscal year, or this calendar year. We'll also be getting about 70% of the Starbucks money and 80% of the Dunkin' Donuts. So we're going to be getting some significant new property next year. I was not expecting it until the following year. Our debt service levy went up by 20% over the prior year, and this is basically just this debt service schedule. Our payments had increased by that amount, so the county will levy the amount of money necessary to pay the payments. We made some very conservative state revenue assumptions. I projected our state funding to go down by 50%, eliminated all general state aid in this budget, and reduced special ed and transportation funding by 30%. This is, as I said, very conservative. It's to get the district to not forecast in on an ongoing basis state money that we expect to go away at some point in the future. I do expect to get some or all of this money next year, but the concern is that in future years we won't receive it. So we're going to budget as though it's not coming in, and then any money that does come in would be a surplus that would help us to offset any future unforeseen expenses such as pension shifts or property tax freezes, and also just to, and then also we have some flexibility in spending on our construction project. Again, we're shifting transportation money from revenue, instead of booking it and recording it to the transportation fund, we're moving it to the education fund. And this is in an attempt to reduce our fund balance in the transportation fund, which is higher than, it's over 2 times what our annual expenses are. So we're seeing lots of tax objections in this fund. So we're intentionally moving revenue or under levying in that fund. So we're projecting or budgeting a loss in this fund.
Will that affect the free transportation at all?
That shouldn't. I mean, that's again a board decision, but we're intentionally we're intentionally shifting revenue from the transportation fund to other funds. So it's not that we're not getting the revenue; we're just spending down that fund balance because it's getting to be too much.
And when it's spent down, that's when the board's going to have to make decisions.
Exactly. And then the bond issue is not considered revenue. It's, if you look at your budget, that's booked in other sources because we're bringing that money in from another source, but it's not considered to be revenue. Our total proceeds net of costs were $5.6 million.
Where does transportation revenue come from?
Well, we levy in the transportation fund taxes to pay for busing, and then we also get money reimbursement from the state for previous expenses. Most of our reimbursement is special ed transportation. So we have buses that we pay for general education, and then we also are spending money to send special education students to outplaced facilities. And that is the primary source of our state reimbursement. So if I look at revenue, I'm projecting revenue to decrease versus last year. In the education fund, we're more or less flat. And then O&M is where we recorded much of our state aid, or our general state aid last year, so that accounts for the big decrease. And then as I pointed out earlier, the transportation fund is intentionally going to be reduced. And then we're also seeing an increase in debt service, again, just due to the debt service scheduled payments. If you look at the proportion of revenue from different sources, we are at 92% from property taxes. This is up slightly from 90% last year, reflecting a reduction in the state component from 4% of our revenue to 2%. The expenditure assumptions, we have our new teacher contract, which gives our teachers an increase in the first year to bring us up to benchmark of 4.9%. And we have our insurance, and in conjunction with that, the insurance contribution of staff increases from 3 to 4%. This is offset by a reduction of 2 full-time equivalent staff members, and we also have 4 retirements. The support staff salary was 2.5% increase. Administrator salary was a 3% increase. We're increasing our substitute teacher salaries this year to try to attract more subs and also to be more in line on our long-term subs. So that's been budgeted. Our medical and dental insurance premiums went down slightly. And
that was a Freudian slip.
Been very conservative in our special ed private and public tuition. I budgeted pretty much flat year over year, but we did see a favorable variance to budget last year. We just had fewer kids, but I don't want to reduce the budget in this area because it's very fluid in kids. If we have a couple of kids move into the district who have high needs, that could trigger the budget.
The insurance contributions, teacher contributions, so that's a credit to the expense.
That's a credit.
Right. So it's a positive thing from an expense perspective. I just wanted to point that out.
Right. The teachers will be contributing an extra % towards their premium, which will reduce our expenses. Right. We're spending on our new science curriculum and professional development. And then we have a one-time reduction in capital spending. Last year we purchased land near the middle school or the elementary school that is not going to be repeated. And then we're also spending a lot on technology. We're replacing our student and teacher laptops. That lease cost this year will be $65,000. We plan to pilot Chromebooks for second grade. We also are replacing and installing a new web filtering software solution and hardware solution, doing some server backups and other infrastructure. So I guess what I wanted to present or point out was that we have although we have a very conservative budget, we're spending in the areas we need. So we've put everything in the budget and considered all the spending needs. And then lastly, the middle school renovation is going to begin next year, and we're projecting to spend about 1/3 of those costs this fiscal year. So if you look at our expenditures year over year, this budget versus last year's actuals, the education fund, we're more or less flat. The O&M fund, again, that variance in the O&M is pretty much the cost of the land that we purchased last year. So that's flat with the not including that extraordinary expenditure. We're expecting pretty much flat spending on everything else. Debt service is increasing again by schedule, and then capital projects fund is the spending on the middle school. So pretty much a flat expenditure budget year over year. If you look at it by object, although we are increasing the rate of pay for everybody, it's offset by some staffing reductions and retirements. You can see a reduction year over year in benefits spending. This is driven by a number of factors. One is the increased contribution that the staff is making towards their benefits. Also the decrease in premiums of 2.5%, which is pretty significant. And then there was also an accounting change. We expensed 14 months of benefits in this current fiscal year to try to get back on cycle with the way the teachers earn their benefits and the way that we expense them. And that's not going to be repeated. Then purchase services, you can see pretty much just a trade between purchase services and supplies. This is due to our computer purchase arrangement. We used to buy the computer, so they would be supplies. Now we're leasing the computers, so we pretty much just shifted that cost into purchase services, but otherwise spending is flat. And then the capital, again, is the reduction, just the land purchase. And then dues and fees, that's the special ed tuition. We saw, I held our budget flat, but we're seeing a positive variance versus last year because we didn't spend as much as we expected last year. This is the breakdown of our expenditures. You can see roughly 70% is salaries and benefits. The next big bucket is purchase services, followed by debt service, and then supplies. This is what our future debt service payments look like. This is our debt service payment for this year. And then this would represent next year's levy. So the increase from 1.7 million to 2.2 million is driven by our recent debt issuance. So that 375,000 of the increase is due to the first payment on the bonds that we just issued, and then the balance was a scheduled increase for next year of roughly $475,000. This does not capture the $150,000 abatement that was contemplated when you did the debt restructure. You had several abatements planned out for future years, and that's not reflected in this chart.
Can you explain that further?
So if you
I remember the abatements, but
if you ignore the blue down here,
I see.
And just shift this red up, that's just what the debt service schedule was in our existing debt. So this, the majority of this jump was a scheduled increase when you restructured the debt in 2012. But when you did that, you also were assuming you were going to make a $150,000 abatement to try to temper that increase and phase in the tax burden. And that's not reflected on this chart. And then the additional increase is just the $375,000 payment on the new bonds we just issued, which we'll make next year. We'll levy for that in December. We'll collect it next July and September. I'm sorry, we'll levy for it in December. We'll collect it in July and September, and we'll pay it in June and December of next year.
Okay, thank you. So Jay, would you say, because I'm looking at the fund balance policy, which we're going to get to next, Would you say this is a good illustration of how the board is stabilizing property taxes for its residents? A good
Yeah,
example of that?
That was one of the key goals of the last Dutch restructuring. It was to get to a steady state bond payment, and then the way we layered in the new debt for the middle school, it's only roughly $112 per household, and it's also kind of flat schedule, so it maintains that flat debt structure.
Yeah, prior to the restructuring, there was quite an increase every 4 to 5
Yes.
years. And we flattened that out. That was intentional.
So we're in alignment with the first paragraph of the fund balance policy.
I also think we have to be careful. We really, I mean, it says 12 million. We talked about this offline, but the fund balance, next line, the fund balance that we need to think about is the 9.7.
Right, and actually the I don't know if the policy is operating. I think it says operating fund balance.
Yeah.
Okay. Which so that would be this $9.7 million number. And as you can see, this is a balanced budget. This $981,000 loss is pretty much the transfer to debt service, and then this. I'm actually missing a number here. This capital projects number should be minus 3.6 million. And then we got an additional 5.6 million in bond issue. So this is the change, and this is what's left over basically from the debt issuance. And that would be the increase in our total fund balance. This 64% number is what I'm projecting to be our ending operating fund balance over our operating expenditures, which, as you point out, is over our current policy. But if I project this out 1 year and look at the end of fiscal year 16 with the completion of the middle school, the number will be exactly 40%, which is right in the middle of our policy.
What was your assumption in what we would take out of the fund balance?
I used a project cost of 9.2 million.
Okay.
And took the difference between what we just borrowed.
Okay.
But the policy also says the district may maintain a fund balance beyond this range for ordinary, known, and certain repairs and other expenditures as specifically identified.
Right.
And we've identified the renovations, so.
And once we get
That's
through
the third paragraph.
the middle school project, we're going to be using our architects to do kind of a capital projects or study to plan out and really do a solid 5-year capital plan and see what our capital needs are for the foreseeable future, and that will also play into our fund balance.
So when we do projections, those capital expenses are built right into the projections.
Right.
Any questions on the budget?
I'd just like to say, and I failed to say it earlier because I met alone primarily with the auditors. You weren't there, and Gene stepped in later, but they were very impressed with the work, and this is for the board's benefit, that Jay's done over the past year in reestablishing the chart of accounts, putting in checks and balances that didn't exist earlier, managing the implementation of the software. And I haven't said that to you either, but that was a big part of it. You made their job a lot easier, and they were satisfied to that point. There was no objections to what it did. Incurring in their audit.
Excellent.
Thank
Yeah.
And your presentations are very clear.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Don't go anywhere yet, because we're talking about fund balance policy with you up there.
Yeah.
So if you have your fund balance policy in front of you, the 2 major paragraphs we just talked about. But we have down in our board agreements and in our board calendar that we always talk about fund balance policy when we do budgeting and levy. So I think we're all in alignment with our policy, but I just want to double check with everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's something that we need to review on an ongoing basis. And right now we're in the middle of a major renovation, and there's some uncertainty with respect to the overall ending costs. And we want to remain as flexible as we can until we get to the point where we have more information. At that time, I think we should revisit it as we do on a regular basis.
I'm very comfortable with it.
All right, awesome. Thank you
Thanks,
very
Jay.
much. Great presentation.
All right. 8E, student attendance and tardies. Dr. Sophie will discuss procedures for addressing student attendance and tardies that align with board policy.
This is something that I asked both our principals to stay for, and then I'm going to ask them to head home because they've got to prepare for tomorrow. But if you remember our discussions from the spring, we really were very concerned when we started looking at numbers of kids that were absent, and numbers of kids that were tardy. And we shared those numbers with you last spring, and they were some significant numbers. The important part is not only does that impact that particular student, but it also impacts the other students in that student's class. So for tardies, every time someone comes in late, the teacher has to get them situated, the other students have to wait, etc., and it just magnifies by any other kids that are tardy. As far as absences are concerned, one of the things that we're working on is it's really become frustrating and difficult to prepare homework ahead of time for families that are going out of town. And I know that Nate has shared today, which was surprising to me, that teachers go to all this work to get the work together for the students and then they never come pick it up. And that's very frustrating for the teachers that put that time in. We are now in, we're advanced enough that, as I understand it, so correct me if I'm wrong, and if you do, then you have to come up to the mic, that we are far enough along in our homework website that there's an ongoing Google Doc that kids can actually look at and get the homework while they're gone anyway. So we met with the Regional Office of Education person in charge of absences and truancies. Again, keeping in mind that our goal is just to get kids here as much as we can, to follow the law, and to get kids to school on time. Those are our goals. So with that in mind, and I enclosed in your board packets are notes. And they're notes only, and I just want to kind of walk through them with you and get any feedback because they are all aligned with our board policy. Before I go into the notes though, I want to highlight the one, there's an indentation to the third paragraph. The key part in this paragraph where it says in the paragraph of the parent guardian, a valid cause for absence includes illness, observance of a religious holiday, death in the immediate family, family emergency, other situations beyond the control of the student, other circumstances that cause reasonable concern to the parent or guardian for the student's safety or health, or other reasons as approved by the superintendent or designee. And when I did a little bit of research on that, that's taken right from school code. And so right now, based upon school code and our board policy, that particular sentence would dictate what's an excused and an unexcused absence. So keep that in mind.
So just to be clear, in case you don't want to say it, it does not mention holidays or family holidays and vacations.
It does not, so those would be unexcused.
Okay.
Now we're not saying that there'll be that we're punishing that. If we go through the actual, the 2 semesters we're going to do and kind of the breakout, we spent a lot of time on this. We really allowed families to take 2 vacations and still meet our guidelines. So I'm going to walk that through. I want to reiterate that the year is going to be split into 2 when counting tardies and absences. The first half of the year through winter break counts as the first session. From winter break through the end of the year is the second session. Again, keeping into account that the majority of our kids take some days around Christmas break and around Easter break. So we thought it would be fair if we sent a first letter for late and tardies when a student has 5 lates and tardies. And that, as I referred in your letter, it's a nice letter from a school principal. Basically just saying, we're not really sure if you're aware, but your child has been tardy 5 times. And this has an impact on their learning and other people in their class. It's a nice letter, just kind of a heads up. We actually think that by drawing attention to this year, some families are just going to say, wow, I didn't really realize that they had that many absences. They add up. We're bringing attention to it is really our goal. At 10 late or tardies, the second letter will go out from the district with a promise that if more late and tardies come through, then we have to refer to the regional office.
What is PAS?
PASS is their program for monitoring attendance. It's called PASS.
And what happens when they're notified?
When they're notified, they actually also meet with families. But the key piece in this is they will meet with families to make sure and follow up on what we've done with families. Because the law requires that we have diagnostic procedures for identifying causes of either unexcused absences or tardies. And I can say that elementary last year worked on providing some breakfast bars and things in the morning, and therefore kids were not trying to grab breakfast at home, the ones that were having issues. They cut back on their tardies just by doing that. We have to have diagnostic procedures in line to assess why we think the students are tardy or having unexcused absences. We also have to make available supportive services for students that are truant or have lots of unexcused absences. Obviously, if it's a vacation, there's not much we can do with that besides saying to parents we really would like kids in school. There's a difference between a 5-day vacation and some families that go back to home countries for 4 to 5 weeks. And we sometimes have that. All of that has an impact also on education, not only for that child, but for their classmates. Moving right along, 12 later tardies, they would meet with a district level administrator. It would be Jay or Kevin or possibly myself. We would talk that all through, and then at 15 later tardies, a third letter comes out and it's referred to the regional office. Now, mind you, that would actually allow a family or a child to be late 30 times in 1 year. Because it's 15 the first semester and 15 the second semester. So,
so what, I mean, 30 times, geez. What happened? I'm more interested in how someone learns that their child, it's important for a lot of different reasons, as you mentioned earlier, that their child be at school on time. And it seems to me after 5 tardies, if they don't get the story or the lesson at that point, something has to be done. I mean, meeting with them again maybe isn't enough. Is there anything else that can be done to persuade them to get their kid there on time?
That's a very, very good question. And really, now I'm going to tell you the difference between Cook County and Lake County. In Cook County, as a principal, I had a family who had lots of unexcused absences. And as you know, by law, parents are responsible for getting their kids to school. They met with me, they met with district office, they met with the regional office, they went to stand in front of a judge. One of my moms was actually put in jail for 30 days because her kid was not in school. In Lake County, that's handled a little bit differently. They really focus on interventions. They make sure that the school district has provided the interventions. We have not really been working or focusing on interventions for kids. So our goal this next year, after we vet this out with all of you, is to really have newsletters about how important this all is, talk to parents, really just bring it to everybody's attention this year. That's our goal, to get kids here and on time.
And I really think that's, it shouldn't be such a surprise, but I do think that's a change. I think
it's a major change.
So I'll be interested to know where we are a year from now, or even 6 months from now, when we've gone through a semester, because I look at some of these and I think, well, if I was out in the bubble, this would really affect my behavior just to have heard from the school district. So I don't know. I'm very optimistic that this kind of intervention will really improve things. But
we are all very optimistic because, again, our goal is to bring awareness to families, have the conversations, provide the interventions where we can to help out. You know, one of the interventions that was provided to one of the children in my school as a principal is we had a little fund from PTA, and I bought an alarm clock for one of the kids because they didn't have one. This was before iPhones. So they didn't have one. I mean, that's an intervention to get kids to school on time. Or if a child walks to school, then you have to have the conversation, maybe you need to leave 10 minutes earlier. So these are things that we really have not had in place.
Well, and how much have we, I'm trying to remember how much we've communicated with families through newsletters and that kind of stuff, that it's a problem.
Yeah,
we really haven't.
We haven't, yeah. So hopefully, I mean, I'm good with all this, but hopefully we're also doing some of that. We're just
gonna be
making
doing
like
lots
more
of
public
that.
awareness about it. Because I do think that people, in not hearing that, sometimes think it's not a big deal, but it really is. It really messes up the whole class when that happens.
Yep.
Are we doing anything in the buildings, in the classrooms, in terms of positive reinforcement for the students that are always on time, where you're not having an issue?
Would both of you like to step up to the mic? I think we need both of you for this one.
You know, I would say that one of the things that every one of our teachers does, I know I do it at the front door and they do it at their doors, they greet the kids when they arrive. They shake their hand, they say hello, it's nice to see you. That's not something that they get to do if they're squeaking in late. The teacher then is instructing. I think, you know, in terms of incentivizing them to be in class, you know, these days we would hope that the kids are excited to be there. And I certainly saw as we began the school year this year, especially in those sixth graders' eyes, a little bit of a panic. They felt they were even getting close to being late. So they were getting there on time. Once they arrived, I think the issue is that arrival time at the beginning of the day. But I think that for some kids there certainly is this fear that, geez, if I'm walking in and disrupting the class, I don't get the same experience that everyone else does. And I know many of our teachers actually are doing, you know, beginning their teaching as kids arrive. It's a quick question at the door. It's an entry activity as they walk in, and they wouldn't have the opportunity to be part of that.
I would just ditto what Nate says. In some of our primary classrooms, when the students come in, they place something on the smartboard to show that they're there. They have a little chart where they can do that, and those kinds of things are missed, as well as the capturing kids' hearts, shaking the hands. We also report out tardies and absences on the report cards, so that is an avenue to say there are none or there are a few. So that's one communication tool right there.
And I suppose the other thing I neglected to mention is one of my favorite awards to get during the awards assembly at the end of the year. So there are perfect attendance recognitions for kids at each grade level, and we even have a few each year who've earned perfect attendance for all 3 of their years. So that's one of the things to celebrate.
I think the big key piece is the instruction starts when the bell rings. And so they're missing some of these key parts to get their day going on the right foot. And then when they do come in, the teacher's got to backtrack to get them organized, which impacts everybody else in the classroom. So
I think part of our communication can also be that the regional offices guidelines are 5% of the school day, of the number of school days is truant. So 5% of our 180 is really only
9 days.
9 days in the school year. And our absences are well beyond that. So I think, like Leanne said, just starting that communication, because people probably aren't aware of that. And that word truant, sounds a little scary and negative to folks. So if they understand what we're shooting for, we want to keep our kids in school. So, and what those numbers mean, we're really hoping that helps. And really what we've lined out here really exceeds that 9 days, just to get things rolling and start communicating and creating that awareness.
We padded the numbers a lot more than what the regional office gave us, simply because our goal this year is to bring attention, start the process, because we really haven't, according to our senior administrator, Nate Blackmer, we really haven't focused on this.
Who is younger
for
than
a long
me.
time. So, the notes, I specifically put the notes that we came up with an admin team, wanted to make sure there were no concerns on your part, and then I would just share with you, we promise we'll be communicating a lot. That's our goal for this year on this.
I do think having the definition of excused and unexcused grounded in the school code is really key, because I'm quite convinced that people might feel very strongly that something ought to be excused when it's not in the school code, and having that kind of
And also
grounded.
publicizing it more.
I think that's right.
That Margaret raised the issue of you're truant when you're out more than 9 days. Nobody knows that.
Right.
And what does it mean to be truant? What does the code say that you're guilty of by doing that? And we should publicize
Those unexcused absences,
Yeah.
so that's anything that's not in that school code.
Right, but we should let people know that. Maybe in a news article or something. Right?
we're really going to be working on a series of newsletters to keep parents updated on this. So it's really an education for everyone because we haven't spent a whole lot of time on it.
I was also thinking about Phil's comment, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds with you guys, but I think incentivizing is a good thing to think more about. And I wonder about overall school incentives for like a campaign to raise awareness, a campaign to use peer pressure a little bit to, if the kids in the whole school achieve a certain level of attendance, maybe there's some reward that they earn or.
Well, and they probably have to be careful because you don't want to have sick kids coming that really should be taking that day.
But I'm sure there's a way they can be creative.
Yeah, and I think it'd be worth noting too that in general, we're not necessarily talking about students who are unwilling to come to school or for some other reason they're not arriving on time. It does have a lot to do with the parent piece. Very often it's beyond the student's control that causes them not to be there.
What I was thinking when you said that.
Perhaps even more regular.
So we put in a lot of time on this. We padded the numbers because we really feel like the more we put out and we advertise and we talk about that, we're going to get kids here on time and we're going to get kids here more. And then we can deal with the students that truly have issues.
I think it's a great approach, starting with the awareness. So.
Dr. So did you want me to talk about the shift in prearranged forms at the middle school versus after an absence, or is that something you don't want?
Not yet. I kind of touched on that in the fact that our teachers have been frustrated that they've done all this work before vacations and put work out for families to pick up and they haven't done it. So really what we're going to be doing is putting the onus on the child to get on the website, get the assignments, because they cannot really duplicate the educational experience in a classroom when you're gone. That's impossible.
And helping with some procedures upon their return,
right,
so they know where to go and who to see. Yeah.
Thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Kelly, you may go with them. I know you guys all have early days in the buildings, so.
Thanks.
And we have just approvals and discussion items left. So.
All right, so now we're on the action items. Item 9 on your agenda. We're going to start ramping this up a little bit.
All right.
The first one has to do with the date and time of the budget hearing from publication of notice. We are going to approve our budget at the next meeting, correct? And so prior to that, we have to have a public hearing. So this item is to get that on our calendar.
Before you read it, let me just...
September 29th. Tuesday, September 29th at 6:45.
It is the 29th. Okay.
Any questions or comments about that before we vote? Because that's a pretty simple one. All right. May I have a motion to approve the budget hearing to be held on Tuesday, September 29th, 2015 at 6:45 p.m. at the Lake Bluff Village Hall, 40 East Center Street, Lake Bluff, Illinois, and publication of notice be made.
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haig.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
John Marsden.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes.
Okay, motion's approved. Item 9B. This has to do with the approval of the 2015-2016 tentative budget. Jay spent a lot of time going over it with us, and we asked a lot of questions. I think we probably have a pretty good handle on it. Anybody have any final questions before we vote on approving the tentative budget? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the 2015-2016 tentative budget, which is balanced as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Richard Haig.
Yes.
Phil Hood.
Yes.
John Marsden.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you. And I neglected to say that all that detail is in board packets, which is available online if anybody wants to get into that in more detail. Item 9C has to do with the approval of a construction manager, which is IHC, for the middle school renovation project. And if you guys will recall, whenever we started this project, the discussion about hiring a construction manager, we decided to do it by committee. And so myself and Leanne and Jay and Jean, and am I forgetting anybody else?
No.
We sat through 4 interviews, and the recommendation of the committee, after pretty clear cut is to recommend that we approve IHC's contract this evening. And a representative from IHC, who I'm embarrassed to admit it, I forget, Tim is here tonight. I apologize for forgetting your name. Is here to answer any questions that anybody might have. But we felt it was a very strong showing, and feel very comfortable recommending IHC. Their experience, they came to the table knowing a lot about our project. They came to the table recommending specific changes to what we already have talked about. They had called the architect to discuss the project. They brought their proposed superintendent and project manager to the interview, which not all the other candidates did. The superintendent we're using has been in the business for the beginning of time. I mean, he's been there, he's done it. Very strongly recommend approval of IAC tonight. If anybody else has anything else.
The only other thing I would add is when we made the decision, Jay and I split up and called different colleagues of ours in different districts that had used them. They were all very highly recommended, both from previous clients and current clients. I spoke with Hodges and Louisi. They also felt very strongly they were a great company. So it is without reservation. They've already attended a meeting and were already talking to us about costs in that meeting, which I was very impressed about. So we recommend them highly.
Great.
Anybody need any other questions answered?
And the contracts have all been they've been worked out between Hodges and between IHC. They've spent a lot of time doing it for the other districts. So it's the exact same contract they've used in the past that's worked. They are charging us the same cost that they've charged other districts. The only thing that you need to know is we are paying them 2.75, and we're calling that at risk because they hold on to all the contracts for the contractors, and then we write them one check because there's not enough hours in the day for Jay and I to manage all the
paying all the individual bills and doing
individual bills.
Manage the contract.
So it's 2.75% times the total cost, whatever that ends up being.
And
so if we go over budget, you get paid more as well.
Microphone, if you're going to answer, you do have to go to microphone. Sorry.
Just a rhetorical question.
Obviously, the intent is to not go over budget,
of course.
But yes, it's based on the total cost of the work. And the total cost of the work is defined in the AIA contract. So.
Okay. And you guys clear all the liens and all that other stuff, is that?
Exactly. When we hold the contracts and truly it says at risk, then we're at risk for dealing with those types of issues.
Okay.
But you also, when you put a public bid out to the various trade contractors, you get bonds from each of those contractors, so you also have that level of comfort as well.
We will also be purchasing construction insurance. Jay and I have really brought ourselves up to speed on that, so we'll talk about that another evening because we don't have to. We're far away from that right now.
Terrific.
Any other questions?
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're very excited about working together.
May I have a motion to approve the hiring of IHC Construction as construction manager for the renovations at LBMS as recommended by the administration?
So moved. Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
John Marison.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Motion is approved. Welcome to the team.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Sorry I had to wait so long.
Rest now because we have a lot of work to do in the next few months.
Yeah. All right. 9D, salary adjustments for non-licensed staff. Here we're going to talk about, we talked about this in closed session, and to summarize, this is a motion to approve salary adjustments for non-licensed staff as presented. It includes an increase for Nancy Goldberg from a 212-day employee to a 260-day employee at a cost of $5,390. It includes an increase to Lori Brugioni's pay rate from $15 to $15.90 an hour, retroactive to the beginning of summer school. And it includes an increase to Ullman Murillo's annual work hours from 550 to 800 hours at a cost of approximately $4,000. So may I have a motion to approve the salary adjustments for non-licensed staff as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
I didn't ask if there was a discussion. Anybody have a question or clarification on that?
Nope.
No.
Okay, roll call.
clear presentation by the administration on this issue.
Roll call vote, please.
John Marsden?
Yes.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gottschall?
Yes.
Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood?
Yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you. Item 9E, independent contractor agreement from Mary Jo Stevenson. Jean, can you give us a 20-second update on that one again?
Yes, we have 19 new first and second year teachers at elementary. And between all of Margaret's responsibilities as well as all the teacher evaluation, we really want to front load extra support in the classroom for all those 19 teachers. And Mary Jo actually goes in, works with a modeling of lessons, co-teaching lessons. She helps with the teaching of reading and math. And this is something we may not need next year because we're really getting them all in to a nice cycle. She's been very, very helpful for our new teachers and filled in on a couple situations where teachers had to leave last year. So,
any questions for Dr. Sophie or administration on that? All right, can I have a motion to approve the 2015-2016 independent contractor agreement with Mary Jo Stevenson as presented by the administration?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Susan Ryder?
Yes.
Mark Berry?
Yes.
Leanne Charlo, yes. Julie Gottschall?
Yes.
Richard Haig?
Yes.
Philip Hood?
Yes.
John Marsden?
Yes.
Motion's approved. Moving along, item 9F, amended board meeting calendar. We are talking about amending the calendar for 2015-2016 and deleting the September 15th, 2015 committee of the whole meeting and moving the April 26th, 2016 regular Board of Education meeting to April 19th, 2016. 2016. Any questions on that?
No.
So may I have a motion to approve the amended board meeting calendar as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Do we need a roll call for that? Is that one?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is approved. Policy first reads. We have policy first reads for policy 2:250, 3:40, 3:50, 3:60, 4:45, 5:40, 5:120, 5:270, 5:290, 6:15, 6:40, and 6:210, all of which are included in your board packet and reviewed by our board policy committee. Does anybody have any, turn to the board policy committee, does anybody have anything they want to raise, issues they have concerns, or anybody else?
There are two policies where we had some questions that we discussed during the policy committee meeting. I understand that those have been vetted with council, but I still have some follow-up questions, and that's with regard to 5.120 and 5.290. So I believe we can accept them for first read with the stipulation or understanding that we're going to go back to council and review some terms in those policies. I think you should raise your issue too, because I think that was a good question. Leanne Charlo had raised an issue with regard to policy 540.
Yeah.
With regard to communicable diseases, and the standard for that seems to be people are encouraged to report the existence of a communicable disease. And that's another thing I'd like to run down. It seems to me that there shouldn't be, if there's a substantial risk of transmission, that maybe we would require that be brought to the attention of the school district.
And the law's very clear on that, but we can talk about that with you.
Okay.
And we have plenty of time to do that because we will not do second read until the September 29th meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll get that scheduled. She's actually coming back from her summer leave next week. So we'll get that scheduled.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments about any of the policies? All right, can I have a motion to approve policies for first read, which includes all the policies which I just listed?
So moved.
Second.
That could be a roll call vote. I mean,
That can be a voice.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. It can be?
Yeah, it
Okay.
can be.
Okay.
Just double check.
And then we have item 9H, which is the approval of a personnel report. We did not talk about this in close, so I want to go down to my summary page. And this includes a number of items. Under non-licensed personnel, it's the recommendation to hire a Marlene Balling as the nurse at LBES, effective August 11th, for $38 an hour for 7.5 hours a day. What?
Do we always go through this detail?
Yeah. Also under non-licensed personnel, resignations of Elizabeth Evans, who's a teaching assistant at the elementary school, effective August 11th. Andy Lewandowski, a teaching assistant at the middle school, effective August 11th. And Karina Huddleston, who's a teaching assistant at the middle school, effective August 1st. Under licensed employees for recommendation to hire, we are talking about Emily Anderson, who's a speech and language pathologist at the middle school. Salary lane MA plus 15 step 6 at 0.8 FTE, effective August 12th. She will be replacing Jody Polk. Did I pronounce that? Also, recommendation to hire back Tom Beck as our teacher at the elementary school in his lane of MA plus 6 at 0.4 FTE, effective August 17th, replacing Katie Marzin. And then also asked to approve a leave of absence for Janelle Carney, 6th grade math teacher at the middle school, effective August 17th through September 8th, for personal reasons, care of family. So, I have a motion to approve the personal report. Well, prior to saying that, does anybody have any questions, comments, or concerns?
Just a side note, Janelle's leave will probably be longer based on the new news about her husband. So.
Okay.
Second.
So move to have a motion to approve the personal report. Okay, roll call vote, please.
Do we have to?
Yes, because we're hiring.
All right, fine. Julie Gottschall.
Yes.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Phil Hood.
Yes.
John Morrison.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes.
Motion is approved. Thank you. Item 9, the consent agenda. This week, the consent agenda for this meeting includes closed session minutes for June 16th, 2015. Regular Board of Ed meeting minutes for June 16th, 2015. BINA hearing minutes. That was our bond hearing.
Mm-hmm.
Bond hearing minutes for the June 29th, 2015. Special Board of Ed meeting minutes for June 29th, 2015. Regular Board of Ed meeting minutes for July 21st, 2015. Policy Committee meeting minutes for July 27th, 2015. Special Board of Ed meeting minutes for July 27th, 2015. The P card report, bills payable report, the July Treasurer's report, the 2014-2015 unaudited actual results. Of all those that I just read, does anybody want anything pulled to discuss in detail prior to voting?
Nope.
All right. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda for August 25th, 2015 as presented by the administration and I just detailed for you.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Richard Haag.
Yes.
Philip Hood.
Yes.
John Morrison.
Yes.
Susan Ryder.
Yes.
Mark Berry.
Yes.
Leanne Sherlow, yes. Julie Gottschall. Yes.
Motion is approved. That's the end of our action items. That was pretty good. FOIA requests. We did have one FOIA request received from a Charlene Roach of Smart Procure for purchase orders dated April 14th, 2015 to the current and a vendor master list. Anything you guys want us to add, say about that?
Nope. I'll
Okay.
take care of.
At the end of the meeting, we have to offer the opportunity for public comments. If anybody would like to address the board. If not, we have a motion to adjourn at 8:44.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Well done.